homeless mom tried to steal formula for her baby. The man who stopped her changed her life forever. The wind bit at her skin, and the sound of distant traffic echoed against the tall buildings that seemed to tower over her like walls of a world she didn't belong to. Every step was heavy, not just because of the weight of her body, but because of the burden of being alone, homeless, and responsible for a tiny life that depended entirely on her. Her little daughter, Lily, slept quietly against her chest, swaddled in a ragged piece of cloth that had once been a baby blanket. Maria felt the soft rhythm of Lily's breathing and tried to focus on that, trying to keep fear and panic at bay. It had been a long time since Maria had felt safe, or even had a place to rest without fear of being woken in the middle of the night by someone who might hurt her. She had been living on the streets for months now, since losing her apartment when the rent piled up too high and the bills became impossible to pay. Before that, life had been a struggle, yes, but at least she had a roof over her head and a little kitchen to make food for Lily. Now everything she once took for granted, the warmth of a bed, a clean sink to wash bottles, even a simple shower, was gone. Every day felt like a challenge just to survive. Maria spent her mornings searching for places that might offer a warm meal or a cup of coffee, and her afternoons trying to find safe corners where Lily could nap without the fear of danger nearby. She avoided crowded streets when possible, not only for her own safety but for Lily's. But no matter where she went, the questions followed her. Where would she find food? How would she get formula for her baby? How long could she keep going like this without breaking down completely? Maria loved her daughter more than anything in the world, but the love was mixed with fear and desperation. She knew that without proper nourishment, Lily could get sick, and every crying night without food made Maria feel like she was failing as a mother. She carried every worry with her as she walked toward the supermarket, a place she knew she could not afford to enter under normal circumstances. The thought of the shelves filled with formula made her stomach twist with both hope and guilt. She had no money, but her baby had to eat. Inside the supermarket, the air was warm, and the bright lights made Maria blink. It was strange to be somewhere so comfortable and clean when the streets outside were cold and unforgiving. She walked slowly down the aisles, her eyes scanning the shelves for anything that might help her daughter. Every package of formula seemed to glow, as if mocking her with what she could not have. She felt the pull of desperation growing stronger, clawing at her heart with every second. Maria's hands shook as she reached for a can of formula. She told herself this was just for Lily, just a small act to feed her baby. But in that moment, fear and shame collided inside her. What if someone caught her? What would they think of her? Would she be thrown out, arrested, judged as a bad mother? Her mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. But then she looked down at Lily, peaceful and innocent, completely unaware of the danger, and her resolve hardened. Her baby needed her, and Maria was willing to risk everything for that little life. As her fingers brushed the can, Maria froze. A voice spoke softly, and she turned to see a man standing a few feet away. He was not angry, not yelling, not calling for help. He just looked at her with kind, steady eyes. "Hey," he said gently. "Are you okay?" Maria's heart raced. She had been caught. Her face flushed with shame, and she wanted to run, to disappear into the streets where no one could see her mistakes. But there was something in the man's voice that made her pause. There was no judgment there, only concern. She opened her mouth to lie, to say she was just looking, but the words stuck in her throat. The shame and fear bubbled over, and tears started to spill down her cheeks. I don't have money," Maria whispered, her voice trembling. "My baby, she's hungry. I don't know what else to do." The man nodded slowly, listening without interruption. He didn't reach for security or look around as if he were annoyed. He simply stood there, giving Maria the space to speak. She felt a strange mix of relief and terror. Relief that someone was listening, and terror that someone knew her secret, her deepest failure as a mother. "I've been living on the streets," she continued, her words flowing faster now as the dam of fear broke. I don't have anywhere to sleep. I don't have money for food. I don't know how to take care of her. I'm trying, I really am, but I don't know how to do this. The man, whose name she later learned was David, didn't interrupt. He didn't offer platitudes or lecture her. He simply nodded, understanding in his eyes, and asked quietly, "Do you have somewhere safe to go tonight?" Maria shook her head. "No, I don't even know where to start." For the first time in weeks, maybe months, Maria felt a flicker of hope. Here was a stranger, someone who didn't scold her, who didn't judge her, who simply saw her as a person in need. Her hand still clutched the can of formula, but the panic began to subside, replaced by something she hadn't felt in a long time: trust. David offered her a seat at a small cafe inside the store, and Maria accepted. As they sat, she told him more about her life: the loss of her apartment, the endless nights on the streets, the fear for her daughter's future. David listened, asking gentle questions, and never once made her feel small or weak. He acknowledged her courage in caring for Lily under such impossible circumstances. By the end of the conversation, Maria felt a weight lifting off her shoulders. For the first time in months, she felt seen, heard, and not completely alone. She left the store that evening with a small bag of supplies that David had helped her acquire, including formula for Lily. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it was a start, a lifeline that reminded her that help could come from the most unexpected places. As Maria walked back to the streets with Lily in her arms, she kept thinking about that moment. The moment when desperation almost led her to make a terrible decision, and the stranger who had stopped her not with punishment, but with kindness. It was a moment that would shape the rest of her journey, a turning point that would mark the beginning of hope in a life that had known too much struggle. She tucked Lily closer under her blanket and whispered, "We're going to be okay, baby. We just have to hold on a little longer." And for the first time in a long time, she believed it. After that evening, Maria could not stop thinking about the man who had shown her kindness in a moment of desperation. David's calm voice, his patient listening, and the way he had treated her with respect stayed in her mind as she navigated the streets with Lily. The small bag of formula he had given her was now tucked safely into her blanket, and every time she fed her daughter, Maria felt a wave of relief wash over her. She knew it was only a temporary solution, but it reminded her that not everyone in the world would turn away when she needed help. The next morning, Maria woke to the cold sun rising over the city. The streets were still empty in places, with only the occasional early worker or stray dog passing by. She wrapped Lily close and walked slowly toward the small park where she usually spent the day. The park was not a playground for joy for her. It was a temporary refuge, a place to sit on a bench without being pushed or ignored. Lily played with a small stuffed toy Maria had found in a donation box, her laughter tiny and fragile, but enough to make Maria smile despite the exhaustion in her bones. Maria knew she could not stay on the streets forever. She had to find a way to provide more than just a few hours of comfort or a single meal for her daughter. But the thought of searching for help on her own made her anxious. She had tried shelters before, and they were often crowded, noisy, or far from her. Some even turned her away because she had her baby with her, leaving her with nowhere to go. She felt trapped in a cycle where every solution seemed just out of reach. That day, Maria decided to return to the supermarket. She felt nervous as she approached, her hands clutching Lily's tiny hand. Memories of the previous encounter with David filled her mind, making her heart beat faster. Would he remember her? Would he be able to help again? She had no way of knowing, but she had to try. For the sake of her daughter, she had to take the risk. When she entered the store, she spotted David near the customer service counter. His eyes lit up slightly as he saw her, and he immediately stepped forward. "Maria." "Lily," he said warmly, kneeling slightly to be closer to the child. "How are you both doing?" Maria's lips trembled as she tried to speak. "We were okay, I think," she said. The words felt inadequate for the chaos of emotions swirling inside her. Relief, hope, fear, and shame all mixed together in a confusing storm. David smiled gently, not judging her uncertainty. He motioned for her to follow him to a quiet corner near the store's small cafe. They sat together, and for a moment the city outside seemed to disappear. Maria shared more of her story, telling David about the nights spent under bridges, the constant hunger, and the hopeless feeling of failing as a mother. She admitted how lonely it was, how afraid she was to trust anyone. She had been forced to survive on her own for so long that opening up felt impossible. Yet with David, something was different. There was no scolding, no suspicion, only understanding. David listened carefully, nodding, and occasionally asking gentle questions. "Have you tried any programs or shelters that help mothers and babies?" he asked. Maria shook her head. "I don't know where to start. I've asked some places, but they all have long lists and I can't wait that long. Lily needs help now." David considered this quietly for a moment. "I think I know a few places that can help you right away," he said finally. He pulled out a small notebook from his pocket and wrote down a few names and addresses. "These are organizations that provide food, clothing, and even temporary housing for mothers with babies. They're understanding and can guide you step by step." Maria's hands shook as she took the paper. She had tried reaching out before, but nothing had worked. This time she felt a spark of hope. David's knowledge and kindness made it seem possible, for the first time in a long while, that her situation could improve. She thanked him repeatedly, her voice cracking with gratitude. Over the next few weeks, David continued to support Maria in small but meaningful ways. He helped her gather donations of clothes for Lily and herself, brought extra diapers and formula when he could, and even connected her with a volunteer who offered free medical checkups for babies. Maria began to realize that she didn't have to face every struggle alone. The idea of asking for help no longer felt shameful. It felt like a step towards survival and a better future for her child. One day, David introduced Maria to a community center that specialized in helping mothers in crisis. The building was bright and welcoming, with rooms filled with toys, colorful posters, and the laughter of children. Maria felt nervous stepping inside, unsure if she truly belonged. But the staff greeted her warmly, and after explaining her situation, they immediately offered her a place in their temporary housing program. She would have a safe room for her and Lily, access to food, and guidance on learning new skills to find a stable job. For Maria, it felt like stepping into another world. The walls were painted in cheerful colors, the beds were clean and soft, and the kitchen smelled of fresh bread and coffee. She felt tears prick her eyes as she realized that at last, there was a place where she and Lily could breathe, even if only for a little while. As days turned into weeks, Maria began to follow the programs offered at the center. She learned budgeting skills, attended parenting classes, and slowly started building a routine that brought some stability back into her life. The process was not easy. Old habits of fear and distrust sometimes returned, and the weight of her past struggles pressed heavily on her shoulders. But every time she looked at Lily, laughing and exploring the small playroom, she remembered why she had to keep moving forward. David visited occasionally, always encouraging and never judgmental. He celebrated small victories with her, like the first time Maria cooked a full meal for Lily using donated ingredients, or when she managed to open a savings account for the first time in years. He reminded her that every small step counted, that change did not have to be instant to be meaningful. Maria began to see herself differently, too. She was not just a homeless mother struggling to survive. She was a determined woman learning to take control of her life, building a better future for her child. The despair that had once defined her days slowly loosened its grip. She felt proud of the resilience she had shown, of the courage it took to continue fighting when the world seemed stacked against her. Through the support of David and the community center, Maria also made connections with other mothers facing similar struggles. She found comfort in their stories, realizing that she was not alone in her hardships. They shared advice, swapped baby items, and offered emotional support. For the first time, Maria experienced a sense of belonging, a community where she could share her fears and triumphs without judgment. The turning point came one rainy afternoon. Maria had spent the morning at a training session to prepare for job opportunities, and Lily was napping peacefully in her room. She sat by the window, watching raindrops slide down the glass, and reflected on how far she had come. Just a few weeks ago, she had been desperate, alone, and unsure if she could keep her daughter alive. Now she had food, shelter, guidance, and hope. She realized that kindness had changed her life in ways she never expected. David had often said that small acts of compassion could ripple into life-changing moments, and Maria now understood the truth of his words. She thought about how a single act, stopping her from stealing formula and listening to her story, had led to everything she had now. It was not just the formula that mattered. It was the recognition of her humanity, the willingness to see her as more than her circumstances. From that day forward, Maria promised herself that she would pay it forward. She wanted to help others who were struggling, just as David had helped her. The idea of creating positive change in someone else's life filled her with a sense of purpose she had never felt before. She began volunteering at the center, helping new mothers navigate the programs, sharing her experiences, and offering the same compassion that had once saved her. Maria knew that the road ahead would not be easy. There would still be challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But she also knew that she had survived worse than she ever imagined, and that with support, determination, and love for her daughter, she could continue to build a life filled with hope. And most importantly, she knew that the kindness of one person, someone who chose to help rather than punish, had given her the opportunity to change everything. After settling into the community center, Maria felt a sense of relief she hadn't experienced in a long time. The small room she now shared with Lily was warm, quiet, and clean. For the first time, she could let her daughter crawl and play without constantly worrying about danger or discomfort. Every corner of the room reminded her that there were people who cared enough to create a safe space for families like hers. The blankets were soft, the mattress was firm but comfortable, and there was a tiny dresser where she could store the few possessions she had. It was simple, but it was hers for now, and that knowledge brought an unexpected peace. The center provided more than just a place to sleep. It offered guidance, structure, and hope. Each day, Maria attended classes and sessions designed to help mothers regain independence and stability. There were workshops on budgeting, nutrition, and parenting. There were also career sessions that taught computer skills, resume writing, and interview preparation. At first, Maria felt overwhelmed. The tasks seemed endless, and she worried she wouldn't be able to keep up. But slowly, step by step, she began to learn that even small progress was still progress. One morning, Maria attended a session about job opportunities for mothers. The instructor, a friendly woman named Lisa, encouraged the participants to think about their skills and strengths. Maria listened quietly as others shared their stories, their fears, and their hopes. When it was her turn, she hesitated, unsure if she had any skills that could help her find a job. I've mostly worked odd jobs, nothing permanent, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I can do this. Lisa smiled warmly and leaned forward. Maria, what you've done so far, caring for Lily, surviving everything you've been through, that's already proof of your strength, determination, and resilience. Those are the same skills that employers look for. We just need to help you recognize them in yourself. Maria felt a glimmer of hope. She realized that her experiences, though painful, had shaped her into someone capable of perseverance and hard work. For the first time, she thought she might actually be able to build a better life, not just for survival but for growth. Meanwhile, David continued to check in on Maria. He didn't interfere or try to control her decisions. Instead, he offered guidance and encouragement. He brought extra baby supplies when he could, introduced her to helpful contacts, and celebrated every small victory with her. One afternoon, he noticed Maria studying a list of local job postings and asked if she wanted help preparing for interviews. She nodded eagerly, grateful for his willingness to support without judgment. Together, they practiced interviews. David asked questions and gave advice on how to answer honestly and confidently. He reminded Maria to highlight her strengths, her problem-solving skills, her ability to adapt under pressure, and her experience caring for a child while managing difficult circumstances. With each session, Maria's confidence grew. She began to believe in herself again, a feeling she had not experienced since before her life had fallen apart. While Maria worked on building her career skills, she also focused on parenting. The center provided a safe play area for Lily, and Maria attended classes to learn about child development, nutrition, and emotional support. She realized that her daughter's early experiences would shape her future, and she wanted to provide the stability she had been missing in her own childhood. Watching Lily play with other children, laughing and exploring, filled Maria with joy and determination. Every small milestone her daughter achieved became a source of pride and motivation. One day, the center offered a special workshop about financial independence. Maria listened carefully, taking notes on budgeting, saving, and planning for emergencies. She realized that money management was not just about survival, it was about creating opportunities for the future. For the first time, she considered opening a savings account, imagining a time when she could pay for necessities without relying solely on charity. It was during these moments of learning and growth that Maria began to truly understand the power of kindness and support. She thought about David's intervention in the supermarket, the day he had seen her not as a thief, but as a desperate mother in need. That single act had changed everything. It had given her access to resources, knowledge, and, most importantly, hope. She understood that sometimes all it took was one person to see someone's humanity to spark transformation. Maria also formed friendships with other mothers at the center. They shared stories, offered advice, and supported each other through challenges. She met women who had faced different struggles. Some had lost homes, some had fled unsafe situations, and some had battled illness or addiction. Each story was unique, but the shared goal of caring for their children and rebuilding their lives created a bond stronger than anything Maria had experienced before. The sense of community replaced the loneliness that had weighed on her for so long. One afternoon, Maria was approached by a woman named Sarah who volunteered at the center. "Maria, we're organizing a mentorship program," she said. "Would you like to help other mothers who are just starting their journey here?" Maria's heart swelled with emotion. She had never imagined herself in a position to help others. The thought of giving back, of becoming the kind of support that David had been for her, inspired her deeply. She agreed immediately, eager to offer hope to women facing the same challenges she had once endured. As weeks turned into months, Maria's confidence continued to grow. She applied for part-time jobs through programs at the center, practiced interview techniques, and even began to explore opportunities for further education. Each small step forward reinforced her belief that she could create a better life for herself and Lily. She no longer saw her past as a chain holding her back, but as a source of strength and experience she could use to navigate the future. Through all this progress, Maria never forgot the importance of kindness. She saw how David's simple act of compassion had rippled into her life, leading to opportunities, friendships, and personal growth. She realized that the world could be harsh and unforgiving, but there were people willing to help, people who chose to see humanity instead of mistakes. This understanding shaped her approach to life, encouraging her to be empathetic, patient, and supportive to others whenever she could. Maria also became more proactive in addressing practical challenges. She learned how to budget for food, manage donations, and create schedules that balanced work, parenting, and personal growth. She began keeping a journal to track her progress and reflect on her experiences. Writing became a form of therapy, allowing her to process emotions and set goals for the future. Each entry reminded her of how far she had come and how much she had achieved, even in the face of overwhelming obstacles. One particularly memorable day, Maria and Lily visited a local park together. Lily ran and played with other children, her laughter ringing through the air. Maria watched her daughter, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. She thought about the days when she had struggled to feed Lily, when every step outside felt dangerous, and when hope seemed impossible. Now, she had a safe home, support from caring individuals, and a growing sense of confidence. She realized that change, though slow and challenging, was possible with persistence, help, and a little faith in humanity. David visited that day as well. He watched Maria interact with Lily and other mothers, seeing the transformation firsthand. "Look at you," he said quietly, a smile of pride on his face. "You've come so far." Maria felt tears prick her eyes. She knew he was right, not just in terms of practical progress, but in the way she had grown emotionally, socially, and mentally. She had gone from desperation to determination, from fear to confidence, and from isolation to community. Maria's journey was far from over, but she had reached a turning point. The combination of support, education, and self-belief had given her the tools to continue moving forward. She had learned that setbacks were part of the process, that asking for help was a sign of strength, and that even the smallest acts of kindness could change the course of a life. Every moment spent with Lily, every lesson learned at the center, and every encouragement from David reinforced her commitment to building a better future. By the end of part 3, Maria had transformed from a struggling, desperate mother into a woman taking control of her life, filled with hope, confidence, and a sense of purpose. She had discovered the power of community, the importance of persistence, and the life-changing impact of compassion. Most importantly, she had realized that she was capable of creating a brighter future for herself and her daughter, one step at a time, with courage and determination guiding the way. Life at the community center had become a rhythm for Maria and Lily. Each day brought new challenges, but also new opportunities. Maria woke up each morning with a determination she had never felt before, ready to take one step closer to stability. She no longer felt trapped in a cycle of survival, but instead was learning to plan for the future. Every morning she fed Lily, packed a small bag with essentials, and prepared for the day ahead. The center had provided her with temporary housing, but Maria knew that temporary solutions could not last forever. She needed to find steady employment and, eventually, a permanent home. This realization was both daunting and motivating. She spent mornings attending workshops, afternoons volunteering and networking, and evenings making sure Lily had time to play and rest. It was exhausting work, but for the first time, Maria felt that her efforts were shaping a future rather than just keeping her afloat. David continued to be a supportive presence in her life. He didn't control her decisions, but he guided her whenever she needed advice. One afternoon, he suggested she visit a local organization that helped single mothers find employment and housing. "They can help you prepare for interviews, connect you with potential jobs, and even guide you through rental applications," he explained. Maria felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. The idea of moving forward into independent living was thrilling, but it also reminded her of all the responsibilities she would have to shoulder. The first visit to the organization was intimidating. Maria had never interacted with professionals in this capacity before. She worried about being judged for her past, about not having enough skills, or about failing in front of strangers. But as soon as she entered the building, she was met with warmth and encouragement. A counselor named Emma listened patiently as Maria explained her situation. She asked about Maria's skills, experiences, and goals, not to judge her, but to understand how best to help. For the first time, Maria felt that someone was genuinely invested in her future. Emma guided Maria through the process of finding a part-time job that could eventually lead to full-time work. They updated her resume together, highlighting her strengths and experiences. Maria learned how to present her story in a way that showed resilience, problem-solving, and determination, skills she had honed while caring for Lily and surviving on the streets. Each session built her confidence, and soon she began attending interviews with real hope, rather than fear. In the meantime, the community center helped Maria develop a routine that balanced work, education, and parenting. Lily attended a nearby daycare during workshops and classes, giving Maria time to focus on building her skills and exploring opportunities. Seeing her daughter play safely with other children brought Maria an indescribable sense of peace. For the first time, she could imagine a life where Lily would grow up in a stable, nurturing environment. One afternoon, Maria received a call from an interviewer she had met through Emma's program. The company was a local grocery store, not far from the community center. They needed a reliable employee for stocking and customer service, and her persistence, honesty, and willingness to learn had caught their attention. Maria felt a surge of nervous excitement. This could be the turning point she had been working toward. When the day of the interview arrived, Maria dressed carefully, making sure she looked neat and professional. She held Lily close before leaving, whispering, "Mommy's going to try her best and we'll be okay." The interview was challenging, but Maria remained calm. She shared her story honestly, emphasizing the lessons she had learned and the determination she had gained from overcoming adversity. By the end of the interview, she felt proud of herself regardless of the outcome. A few days later, Maria received the call she had been hoping for. She was offered the job. Tears filled her eyes as she held the phone, thinking of Lily and the journey that had brought them here. It was not just a job, it was a symbol of progress, a step toward independence and proof that her hard work was paying off. She immediately called David to share the news. He was overjoyed, celebrating her achievement as if it were his own. "I knew you could do it," he said, his voice filled with pride. Starting the job was both exciting and challenging. Maria had to adjust to a structured schedule, manage childcare, and navigate the responsibilities of employment after a long period of instability. Some days were exhausting, and doubts sometimes crept in. But each evening, when she returned to the community center or her temporary housing, she felt a sense of accomplishment. She had created a routine that allowed her to provide for her daughter while continuing to build her future. Financial stability slowly began to follow. Maria's first paycheck allowed her to purchase new clothes for herself and Lily, restock diapers and formula, and even save a small amount for emergencies. The sense of control over her finances was liberating. She began to imagine the possibility of moving into her own apartment, of creating a permanent home where she and Lily could thrive. Each small purchase, each carefully budgeted expense, was a step toward that dream. As she adjusted to her new life, Maria also took on responsibilities at the community center. She volunteered to mentor other mothers, sharing her experiences and offering guidance to those just beginning their journeys. Her story of struggle, perseverance, and eventual success inspired others. She realized that her past, once a source of shame, had become a tool to help others find hope. Seeing the progress of the mothers she mentored brought Maria a profound sense of fulfillment. David continued to be a guiding presence, but Maria's growing independence allowed their relationship to evolve. He was no longer just a helper. He became a friend, a mentor, and someone who celebrated her victories without taking credit. The bond they shared was built on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. David's initial act of kindness, the moment he had stopped her from stealing formula and listened to her story, had created a ripple effect that transformed Maria's life in ways she never imagined. Through this period, Maria also focused on personal growth. She attended workshops on emotional health, stress management, and communication skills. She discovered the importance of self-care, realizing that taking care of herself was essential to taking care of Lily. She journaled her experiences, reflecting on the lessons she had learned and setting goals for the future. Writing became a form of therapy, helping her process past trauma while planning for the life she wanted to create. One day, as Maria walked home from work, she thought about the transformation she had experienced. Just months ago, she had been living on the streets, unsure of how to feed her daughter or keep her safe. Now she had employment, a supportive community, and a growing sense of confidence. She realized that change was possible, not through luck alone, but through persistence, support, and a willingness to accept help. Maria's journey was far from over, but she had reached a critical stage. She had gained skills, independence, and hope. She had learned that resilience and determination, combined with compassion and guidance from others, could create opportunities she had never imagined. The foundation she had built at the community center, through David's mentorship, and through her own hard work, was strong enough to support a future filled with possibility. As Part 4 closes, Maria began to seriously plan for the next steps, moving into permanent housing, expanding her career opportunities, and creating a stable, nurturing environment for Lily. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but she also knew that she had the tools, the support, and the inner strength to face them. Her life was no longer defined by desperation, but by hope, determination, and the belief that small steps, taken consistently, could lead to profound change. Months had passed since Maria first stepped into the community center, unsure of what the future would hold. Each day had been a battle, but with patience, determination, and support, she had slowly begun to rebuild her life. Her job at the grocery store had become steady, and she had gained confidence in her ability to manage responsibilities she never imagined she could handle. More importantly, she had discovered that even in the darkest moments, hope could find a way to shine through. Maria had begun to take on new responsibilities in her own life. She was saving money for a small apartment, budgeting carefully for rent, groceries, and essentials for Lily. Every paycheck was a step toward independence, and each milestone, no matter how small, brought a sense of accomplishment. For the first time, she could picture a home for her daughter, a place where Lily could grow up feeling safe, loved, and supported. The community center had become more than just a temporary shelter. It had become a place of learning, growth, and connection. Maria had developed a network of friends and mentors who encouraged her every step of the way. She shared meals, stories, and laughter with other mothers, many of whom had faced struggles similar to hers. Through these connections, Maria realized the importance of community. It was not just about survival. It was about building a life enriched with relationships, compassion, and shared experiences. David continued to be a guiding presence in her life, though their relationship had shifted from one of mentor and mentee to one of genuine friendship. He celebrated her victories without judgment and offered support when challenges arose. One afternoon, he visited the community center and found Maria helping a new mother adjust to the programs. Watching Maria offer guidance and reassurance, David felt proud. The same woman he had helped months ago was now helping others, paying forward the compassion that had once changed her life. Maria's role as a mentor brought her immense satisfaction. She remembered how lost and hopeless she had felt when she first met David, and she wanted to give others the same sense of hope that had been offered to her. She guided new mothers through forms, job applications, and parenting workshops. She shared strategies for managing time, coping with stress, and finding small victories in daily life. Each grateful smile and word of thanks reminded her of the ripple effect that kindness could create. As her confidence grew, Maria also focused on her personal growth. She attended evening classes to improve her skills, learning about computer applications, customer service, and basic business practices. She found that learning was not just a way to improve her career prospects, but also a path to independence and self-esteem. Each new skill reinforced her belief in her ability to succeed, reminding her that past struggles did not define her future. One day, Maria learned about a rental opportunity for a small apartment close to her daughter's daycare and the community center. The application process was rigorous, requiring documentation, proof of income, and references. Maria felt nervous, but she carefully organized everything she needed, using the skills she had learned at the center. David encouraged her, saying, "You've worked hard, Maria. You're ready for this. Just take it one step at a time." When Maria received approval for the apartment, tears filled her eyes. She had dreamed of this moment for months, imagining a space that was truly their own, a place where Lily could play freely, and she could finally feel a sense of permanence and security. The first night in their new apartment, Maria held Lily close, feeling the warmth and peace that had been missing for so long. For the first time, she felt that their journey had led them somewhere real, tangible, and hopeful. Life in the apartment was not without challenges. Maria had to balance work, household responsibilities, and childcare. Some days were tiring and overwhelming, and there were moments when she worried about making ends meet. But she also felt proud of how far she had come. She had moved from living on the streets to having a home of her own, a steady job, and a supportive network. Every challenge became an opportunity to learn and grow, and Maria approached each day with determination and optimism. As Maria settled into her new life, she also began to dream bigger. She thought about furthering her education, expanding her career, and creating opportunities for herself and Lily. She enrolled in online courses, learning about business and management, imagining a future where she could support her family fully and even help others in need. Her ambitions were no longer limited by survival. They were guided by hope, vision, and resilience. Throughout this period, Maria never forgot the small acts of kindness that had brought her to this point. She thought often about the day David had stopped her from taking formula in the supermarket, about how he had listened without judgment and connected her with resources. That single moment had created a ripple effect that transformed her life entirely. Maria realized that compassion and understanding could change lives in ways that seemed impossible at first. With this understanding, Maria made it a priority to help others whenever she could. She volunteered at the community center, assisted new mothers in navigating programs, and offered emotional support to women who were struggling. She also shared her story at workshops, emphasizing the importance of hope, perseverance, and seeking help when needed. Her story became a source of inspiration for many, showing that no matter how dire circumstances might seem, change was possible. Lily, too, flourished in their new life. She attended daycare, played with other children, and developed a sense of curiosity and confidence that warmed Maria's heart. Watching her daughter grow and thrive was a constant reminder of why she had fought so hard. Every smile, every milestone, every laugh reinforced Maria's commitment to creating a nurturing, stable, and loving environment. As time passed, Maria's sense of independence and achievement strengthened. She had learned to manage finances, maintain her home, balance work and parenting, and contribute to her community. She had become a role model for other mothers, showing that determination, resilience, and support could overcome even the most challenging circumstances. One quiet evening, Maria reflected on her journey. She remembered the despair of those early days on the streets, the fear of being unable to provide for Lily, and the moments when she thought all hope was lost. She thought about David, the community center, and the people who had offered guidance, support, and compassion along the way. Every step, every act of kindness had built a foundation for the life she now lived. Maria realized that transformation was not just about finding shelter or employment. It was about reclaiming dignity, hope, and purpose. She understood that life could be difficult, unpredictable, and sometimes unfair. But she had also learned that resilience, determination, and a willingness to accept help could turn despair into opportunity and fear into confidence. In the months that followed, Maria continued to grow personally and professionally. She expanded her skills through online courses, networked with professionals, and planned for long-term stability. Her story became an inspiration to many at the community center, and she often spoke about the importance of compassion, support, and seeing the humanity in every person. One day, as Maria watched Lily play in their small backyard, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. The journey from desperation to stability had been long and difficult, but every step had been worth it. She thought about the moment she had been stopped in the supermarket, about the kindness that had redirected her path, and about how that small act had led to everything she now had. Maria knew that life would continue to have challenges, but she was prepared to face them with courage, hope, and determination. As Part 5 closes, Maria's story stands as a testament to the power of compassion, resilience, and community. From a homeless mother struggling to survive, she had transformed into a confident, independent woman, able to provide for her daughter and inspire others. Her journey shows that even in the darkest moments, hope, kindness, and determination can create lasting change. Maria and Lily now had a future filled with possibilities, a future built on courage, love, and the belief that life can be transformed, one small step at a time.